Everyone is panicking about Iran mining Kharg Island and the Strait of Hormuz, calling it the ultimate maritime trap. But what if I told you the US military actually wants them to focus all of their defensive attention on that region? Mainstream networks like CNN are telling you that Washington is prepping a massive ground invasion with 60,000 troops. While YouTube armchair generals are hyperventilating about a massive naval sweep and body bags, the reality is different. Any real veteran will tell you that a D-Day style beach landing on heavily fortified Iranian shores is a suicide mission. The Pentagon is absolutely not going to send American boots into a million-man meat grinder just to clear out naval mines. Unlike the leaks you see on mainstream news, true Pentagon OPSEC means the real crippling blow will happen in total silence. The US has silently shifted to a brutal economic and electronic warfare chokehold, turning the Iranian trap against itself. The real operation to crush the military capabilities of Tehran is already happening, and it is completely invisible to you. This modern combat strategy does not require a single Marine stepping on Iranian sand to achieve complete regional dominance. Instead of merely striking from the air and retreating, Washington has activated a full-scale asymmetric warfare assault plan. Let us decode the highly classified reality of Operation Hormuz and uncover the actual asymmetric war plan the media ignores. This approach represents the most overwhelming technological force in modern history, deployed with absolute strategic precision. According to a widely circulated report by the WSJ, the US military is preparing to deploy massive reinforcements to the Middle East. We are looking at a heavily armed presence of nearly 67,000 personnel, including the legendary 82nd Airborne Division and Marine units. Amphibious assault ships, like the USS Tripoli, are currently deployed in the region with thousands of combat-ready expeditionary forces. Mainstream analysts see this massive troop buildup and immediately assume Washington is planning a devastating and bloody ground invasion. It is completely understandable to fear the disastrous consequences of sending thousands of young Americans into a fortified combat zone. However, you must understand that this highly publicized mobilization is actually a brilliantly executed psychological warfare operation. The Pentagon is intentionally parading these conventional forces in plain sight to create a terrifying illusion for the Iranian generals. By projecting the threat of a massive amphibious assault, Washington forces Tehran to allocate all their resources to coastal defenses. The Iranian military is desperately digging trenches and setting up defensive perimeters to repel a ground invasion that will never come. They are heavily fortifying their beaches and islands, completely unaware that the real American strike package is coming from the sky. True military deception requires making your enemy firmly believe your fake intentions, and this visible troop movement does exactly that. While the world watches the infantry battalions with immense anxiety, the actual architects of this coming war are preparing silently. We must first examine the dense network of deadly sea mines hidden beneath the surface of the critical Strait of Hormuz. Iran believes they have established an impenetrable A2AD bubble over the region, which stands for anti-access and area denial. The entire coastline of Kharg Island has been carefully laced with sophisticated booby traps and explosive-laden suicide boats. The fundamental purpose of this layered and ruthless underwater labyrinth is to ensure that no global navy would dare to enter. However, Washington has spent the last 2 decades developing advanced military technologies specifically designed to shatter those bubbles. The Pentagon never intends to send vulnerable ships into mined waters when they can easily deploy precision standoff munitions. Advanced stealth bombers and long-range cruise missiles can systematically dismantle coastal defense batteries from a safe distance. By utilizing next-generation strike capabilities, the US military renders the entire Iranian underwater minefield completely irrelevant. Swarms of smart weapons will rain down on radar stations and missile silos before the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps can even react. The commanders in Tehran are sitting inside their fortified bunkers, falsely believing that their coastal barriers will keep them secure. Their highly publicized, impenetrable fortress is actually nothing more than a stationary target practice range for American air superiority. This is the brutal reality of modern asymmetric warfare, where physical barricades are instantly bypassed by superior technological reach. To truly comprehend this asymmetric dominance, we must delve into the terrifying capabilities of modern electronic attack platforms. Iranian commanders heavily rely on deploying massive drone swarms to overwhelm conventional air defense systems in a saturation attack. However, these highly touted drone swarms are rendered completely useless against next-generation high-frequency microwave weapons. These advanced directed energy payloads are specifically engineered to instantly fry the delicate circuitry of incoming hostile drones. Before a single conventional surface-to-air missile is ever fired, invisible electromagnetic waves neutralize the threat in milliseconds. Platforms like the EA-18G Growler project an invisible shield of electronic interference that completely dominates the entire airspace. Furthermore, this overwhelming electronic warfare capability severely degrades the complex guidance systems of Iranian ballistic missiles. Without a functional targeting data link, these heavily armed coastal defense batteries are essentially reduced to blind and useless steel. The Pentagon realizes that physical destruction is entirely unnecessary when you can simply scramble the electronic brains of the enemy. This represents a revolutionary paradigm shift in modern warfare, where the most devastating and decisive blows are completely soundless. By relying exclusively on this overwhelming electromagnetic supremacy, the U.S. military effortlessly sidesteps the physical maritime trap. Washington will systematically dismantle the entire offensive architecture of the adversary without ever needing to drop a kinetic bomb. The foundation of this aerial dominance relies on the unmatched target acquisition capabilities of the F-35 stealth fighters. These advanced aircraft do not operate alone, as they are seamlessly integrated with the invisible network managed by U.S. Space Command. The primary mission of this orbital command is to systematically blind the surveillance satellites operated by both Russia and China. Tehran heavily depends on these foreign satellite feeds to monitor American naval movements and target their coastal missile batteries. By severing this critical flow of intelligence data, Washington effectively blinds the entire Iranian military apparatus in real time. Without accurate targeting coordinates from space, those heavily fortified coastal missile bases are instantly transformed into steel coffins. The Iranian commanders will have absolutely no early warning before the precision-guided munitions shatter their underground command bunkers. This invisible war in the upper atmosphere ensures that the enemy is completely paralyzed before the first actual bomb is even dropped. You will never hear about this orbital battlefield on the nightly news, because it contradicts their dramatic beach landing narrative. Total control over the electromagnetic spectrum and near-Earth orbit is the true asymmetric key to neutralizing Kharg Island defenses. The adversary is essentially fighting a ghost, firing interceptors into the empty sky while their critical infrastructure silently burns. This represents the pinnacle of modern warfare, where technological supremacy completely negates the need for a bloody troop confrontation. Forget the media narrative about deploying 50,000 conventional troops, because the real boots on the ground look entirely different. If any American forces are actually operating inside the danger zone right now, it is strictly embedded force recon and Tier 1 operators. These highly specialized shadow units are not deployed to engage in prolonged and bloody firefights with conventional Iranian infantry. Their primary mission is to silently infiltrate hostile territory and utilize advanced laser designators to paint high-value targets. Moving like ghosts through the desert terrain, they identify hidden coastal missile batteries and heavily fortified underground bunkers. Once these strategic targets are locked and painted, these elite operators communicate directly with overhead B-52 strategic bombers. This is the moment when the true and devastating destructive power of the American military is unleashed upon the isolated enemy forces. The massive bombers fly far above the engagement zone to deliver what seasoned military analysts terrifyingly call candles from hell. These precision-guided bunker busters penetrate deep into the earth before detonating with an absolutely unimaginable explosive force. Subterranean command centers and hidden missile silos are instantly pulverized into dust without a single infantry soldier firing a shot. This relentless aerial bombardment completely softens the battlefield, erasing any defensive capabilities the adversary thought they had. This is the exact asymmetric nightmare that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps desperately wanted to avoid by building their naval trap. Combining invisible ground intelligence with overwhelming aerial firepower, Washington rewrites the absolute rules of modern engagement. To truly strangle the Iranian economy, The U.S. Navy absolutely does not need to enter the heavily mined waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Washington can simply bypass the coastal defenses entirely by projecting its massive naval power into the open waters of the Indian Ocean. Instead of fighting a grueling war of attrition near Kharg Island, American destroyers will effortlessly intercept massive oil tankers. This asymmetric strangulation allows the Pentagon to seize Iranian cargo vessels far beyond the reach of their deadly land-based missiles. A devastating Venezuela-style blockade completely cuts off the critical revenue streams that sustain their formidable military machine. If crude oil exports are violently halted on the global stage, the entire financial foundation of the Tehran regime will instantly collapse. The commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps built a massive defensive trap that the American fleet is intentionally ignoring. Why would any sane general order young Marines to storm a fortified beach when you can simply starve the enemy from a very safe distance? This ultimate form of modern warfare leverages immense global reach to secure absolute victory without ever firing a single bullet on land. This bloodless maritime strategy allows the United States to successfully neutralize the greatest geopolitical threat in the Middle East. Every single barrel of sanctioned crude oil will be heavily monitored and confiscated by international coalition forces patrolling the seas. The absolute genius of this operational plan is that it renders the heavily fortified coastal missile batteries completely useless. We are witnessing a monumental shift in naval doctrine where economic suffocation proves to be infinitely more devastating than combat. We must carefully evaluate the highly complex threat posed by the vast network of asymmetric proxy warfare groups mobilized by Tehran. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps heavily relies on this asymmetric strategy because they understand their conventional limitations. They know that a symmetrical and conventional fight with massive American air and naval power would be completely over in just 72 hours. Instead of fighting on a single unified front, the regime actively funds and directs regional proxy forces like Hezbollah and the Houthis. Their ultimate strategic objective is to set the entire Middle East ablaze and keep the military occupied on multiple distant fronts. However, the Pentagon is absolutely not unprepared for this desperate escalation tactic and has deployed specialized countermeasures. Washington has established incredibly robust defensive perimeters around its critical regional hubs to neutralize any retaliatory strikes. Advanced air defense systems stationed across Allied territories are perfectly designed to neutralize incoming ballistic missile threats. Furthermore, heavily armed guided missile destroyers currently covering the Red Sea are fully prepared to counter asymmetric Houthi attacks. These complex layers of active defense are engineered to ensure the main American strike force can operate with absolute strategic freedom. Iran cannot break the ironclad will of the United States by utilizing disorganized militias when facing overwhelming technological supremacy. The proxy network represents a fragile illusion of power that shatters instantly when confronted with an organized multi-domain defense grid. Many of you watching this right now correctly understand that sending American forces into a massive ground war is a terrible idea. The deeply justified fear of seeing our brave men and women returning home in body bags resonates heavily across the entire nation. However, you must realize that the current Pentagon leadership absolutely shares this exact same fundamental America First sentiment. Instead of relying on outdated and excessively bloody infantry tactics, Washington has completely embraced a much smarter approach. The primary objective of relying exclusively on overwhelming air and naval supremacy is to completely protect precious American lives. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps desperately wants a physical confrontation because they believe they can inflict massive casualties. But the United States military flatly refuses to play their twisted game or step into the archaic maritime trap they have carefully set. We possess the most extraordinary and technologically advanced military apparatus that the human race has ever managed to successfully build. It makes absolute tactical sense to leverage this incredible electronic warfare advantage rather than sacrificing our own infantry units. By systematically dismantling their coastal defenses from thousands of miles away, we completely nullify their only strategic advantage. This is not a sign of hesitation or weakness, but rather a brilliant demonstration of overwhelming and calculated asymmetric dominance. You can rest assured knowing that the real classified battle plan is specifically designed to ensure our ultimate victory without the blood. As the 1-0 day window closes, we are witnessing the most sophisticated display of asymmetric warfare in modern military history. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps completely believed that they were setting the ultimate naval trap in the Strait of Hormuz. However, the Pentagon essentially flipped the entire chessboard by utilizing overwhelming electromagnetic and economic strangulation. They transformed a heavily fortified coastal fortress into an isolated and useless island without sacrificing a single American soldier. Every single mine laid in the water and every missile battery deployed on the beaches has been rendered completely tactically irrelevant. While the mainstream media continues to push the terrifying narrative of a bloody ground invasion, the real war is completely invisible. The global economy might still face massive turbulence, as oil flows are strictly monitored and sanctioned by the international coalition. But Washington has definitively proven that it absolutely does not need to fire conventional weapons to completely neutralize an adversary. This highly classified strategic pivot successfully protects American lives while simultaneously dismantling the Iranian military apparatus. The entire strategic calculus of the region has been permanently altered by this stunning display of non-kinetic military superiority. Tehran must now realize that their decades of investing in asymmetric proxy warfare and coastal defense systems were completely in vain. So, I leave it to you. Is the U.S. military holding back its ultimate electronic warfare capabilities to avoid a wider regional conflict? Or perhaps the Pentagon is playing right into a massive geopolitical trap set by Russia and China to continuously drain American resources? Please let me know your detailed tactical assessment in the comments below so we can continue this vital discussion on modern warfare.